Good evening, students. So, today we are going to start our third session on HTML5. So, in our last session, we have seen how we can create tables in HTML and what are the different attributes in the HTML table tag and what are the different attributes of table column tag. So, basically, we have seen how that there is a tag that is table in HTML by which we can create a table like structure in on our HTML web page. So the table like structure, I hope you already know about that. That a structure that contains some rows that is in tabular form. So these are called as columns, while these horizontal ones are called as rows. So when we want to create this structure, so we use this table tag. So we can create it in HTML with the help of this table tag. So after creating the table, we have seen the different attributes of table like border, border color, cell spacing, cell padding. So these were the different attributes that we have seen in our attributes of the table tag. Then we have seen the different attributes of table column, that is again like border, border color, and there were two most important, that were row span and call span. So we have seen if we want to merge the rows, then we use this attribute, and when we want to merge columns, then we use this attribute. And the number of rows we want to merge, we provide the value of that. That means if you want to, let's suppose we want to merge these two rows, so what we will do is we will do td row span equal to 2. While if we want to merge these two columns, then we will write like td call span equal to 2. So these were the two attributes of the td tag. So basically these attributes are used to merge the cells. So on the part of this column it is important, while on the table there were two attributes, that was cell spacing and another one was cell padding. So this attribute is used to define the space between the different cells. That means if you want to create the space between this cell and this cell, then for this we will use cell spacing. While if you want to create cell padding, that means if you want to create a space within the cell, that means between the content and the boundary of the cell, then we will use this cell padding. So I hope these topics were clear to you. Now let's move on to our today's topic. So today we are going to learn about how we can create forms in HTML and how on that form we can use the different you can say widgets. That so these are basically called as, you can say, widgets. So widgets are nothing, they are kind of tools that helps you to take the information. So either we can use text box, we can use checkbox, radio button, submit button. So there are multiple tools. There are some other tools as well, but today we are going to learn only these four tools. And then we are going to see how we can insert an image on our web pages. So let's start our today's first topic. So first is creating form. So in HTML, the form is commonly used to gather information from applicants or visitors of a website. So basically what it does it mean is, I hope you have used so many social websites or other networking websites such as Facebook, Instagram, Gmail, etc. So basically whenever you are going to any of these social networking sites, so first they ask you to register yourself, and while doing your registration they ask some of your information such as your name, your age, your gender, contact details, your email address, your preferences. I mean, not on these obviously. I mean, these are some kind of questions that can be asked. So basically, they ask you for your name, your date of birth, your gender, your contact detail, and your email. So to gather those informations, the tool or the widget that we use is known as create is known as your forms. So with the help of forms, we can gather this information and then we can either save it or we can pass it to the servers or somewhere wherever we want. So whenever we are going on this website and we do register, so we use those widgets that are defined in this form that we are going to see today. So to create a form in HTML, we use a form tag, while this contains a special element which we call controls to collect data. So some of the controls that we are going to learn today are text boxes, we have checkbox, radio button, and submit button. There are other tools as well, such as the controls are text area, reset button, drop down list. So these are other tools, or you can say control as well, that we can use. But today we are going to learn only these four. And apart from these controls, so whatever the controls you are defining, so that should be come inside this form tag. So it is kind of similar to like when we are creating a table. So the table column, that is TD and TR, that is table row and table column or table data, must be defined inside the table tag. So similarly, if we are using any of these controls, so these control must be defined inside this form tag. If it is defined outside that, then it would be of no use. Okay, so let's see an example how we can create our text boxes and the other controls in the form and how we can use them. So if we want to create a text box in our HTML form, so we will define it as a tag input. So basically the control that are being used in it are input, and then it has a attribute type, and in this type we define that particular control name. That is, if we are using text box, then we will define it as text. So once you do it, so it doesn't come in pair, like it is just a simple text, so you don't need to write like closing one. So this tag you don't need, you can simply write this command, and in the type you will define it as text, and this control would be created on your HTML. So over here you can see we have created two input boxes, that is first name and last name, to get the information of the user. Let's see it on our the same tool that we were using, that is on W3 School. So let's see its example. So over here you can see that they have defined this first name and last name. So over here they have used some other attributes as well. So let me tell you what are their use. So they are using a tag label which is similar to the previous one, like we have used simply we write first name, so you can write that, or you can simply use label, and in the for you will define the name of your tag, that is the input tag. Whatever the name you have defined over here, so you will just provide this value in for, and it will be bind with this particular text box. Clear? So similarly they have created the second one, that is the last name, and in these two they have defined their default value. So you can see they have defined this default value. That's why over here you can see the values John and Doe. If you don't want it, simply what you have to do is you have to just remove it. It's totally up to you whether you want to define some default value or not, and if you are not defining, that is totally okay. Like over here I have removed those default value, and now it is showing me this particular form. In the form, basically there are two most common attributes, or you can say the most important one. Sorry. So the first one is action and second one is method. By default, if method is not there, that means it would be get. So generally in method, you will get two values, get or post. Yeah. And in the action is basically the URL on where you want to send this form data. That means whatever the information we have collected in this form element or with the help of these form elements, so you want to save it somewhere or you want to keep it for your later use. So for that purpose, we define that where we want to send this information. So in an action, we define that URL. So let's check if we provide the value again, the same that is John, and let's do it. And if I submit this, so you can check if I have submit the data. So they have this action page on their website, and over there they are just showing that in the first name you have provided value John, and in your last name you have provided value John. Yeah, so this is how you can use your text boxes. One more thing in the text boxes that you might be wondering, because whenever you write your password, so that generally shows either in this something like asterisk form, something like this, or either it comes as dot 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 dot. So how you can create that control? So it is so simple. What we have to do is, in the input type, rather to write it as text, you have to simply write as password. Although this is not part of the session, but just for your information. So I am telling you that if you click on it, so that it will show the same way. But when you enter the information in it, like suppose I'm writing joy, so you can check, you can see now it is showing me that value in a form of dots. This value is coming as in the form of dot. Let's submit and let's check what values we have provided. So when I submitted it, so over here also you can check that the value which are coming are first name is John, and last name is Dot. For your clarification, let's use some other value so that it might help you to understand. Let's say we are giving in first name Ajay, and in the last name I am providing Jain. So when I run this program, when I submit this, so you can check that in the first name the value is Ajay and in the last name is Jain. I hope this one is clear to you. So let's move to our next slide. So this is how you can create text boxes in your HTML forms. Then we have checkboxes. Checkboxes are basically used when you want to select more than one option. Let's say there are an option on a Google form, on a form. I'm sorry. So there is some issue, guys. Just a second. So okay, sorry for the interruption. So let's get back to our topic. So another one is checkboxes. So if you want to use the checkboxes, so I was telling when you can use the checkbox. So checkbox is used where you want to select more than one option. Let's say they have asked your interest. So I hope most of you were using uh, TikTok, some Josh app, or some other entertainment app. So whenever you logged into these apps, so they ask you what are your interests. So this shows you something like education, health, sports, something like this. And they ask you to select multiple options. So you select education, health, sports, and other options that are available on there. So these all are, you can understand them as a checkbox. They have given some better looks just because of the CSS and all, but you can understand them as a checkbox. So these checkboxes allows you to to select multiple options that are provided. So let's see its example. So over here you can check. So over here you can check, we have created three checkboxes, that is checkbox 1, then checkbox 2, and then this checkbox 3. So over here now it is showing us I have a bike, I have a car, I have a book. So if you want to select any of these checkboxes, so you can select, and based on that your result will be shown. Let's say I have selected these two, and when I submit it, so they have done something like that. Now the over here you can see that I am getting bike and car, while on the HTML form it was displaying I have a bike, I have a car. How does it come? So basically what is happening is, whatever the value we are providing, so that value would be sent with the help of forms. Doesn't matter what you have written over here. That means whatever the text we write, that won't affect if the value is different. So we can write anything over here and we can use the value that we want to send. So to understand it more, let's use some other values. Let's say I just keep it over here a byte. Okay. And for the values I provide 1, 2 for car, and for board let's say 3. Now run it again. So over here you can check that now we are getting the text a bike, car, and boat that we have changed over here. And we have also changed the values of these checkboxes to 1, 2, and 3. So whenever you will select this, let's say I have selected this car and boat 3. You can also and one more thing, it is not mandatory that you provide the different values. You can provide the same values as well, but there would be no impact, because basically you want to show the different values for different different kind of text, or different this bike, car, and boat. But if you want to send the same value, that can also be done. So let's say if I provide the value 2, so it won't give you any error. Basically when you run it, and if you select bike and car, so you can check that for value 1 and value 2 both are the same value. So whatever the value you will provide, it will get. Clear? So this is how the checkbox works in HTML form. Now let's move on to our next topic. Then we have this radio button. So radio buttons are basically used when you have to select one option from the given multiple options. It might be like you want to select your gender, and it would be like male, female, and others. So it is obvious, no one can be male and female both. Either it would be in others, or it would be male or female. So that you can select, or that you can create with such control with the help of this radio button. So the same, you will define input type, and in type you will define it as radio. Let's check. So over here also you can see that in the radio buttons we have provided the different values. Okay, but this time the name of these radio buttons is same. While in the checkbox we have seen the name of the checkboxes were also different. So the reason behind this is that basically you just want one value. You don't want to keep all these values. You want to select only one value from the given multiple values. That's why we select. I mean that's why the name is given as same. Clear? The same thing would happen if you want to send the same value that you can do, and but in this case you would be able to select only one. Clear? This is how your radio buttons work. Then we have another control that is the most important one, or you can say that this is your submit button. So basically, submit button helps you to send your data onto the defined URL. What does it mean is whatever the value you have written, until unless you are not submitting it, that means you are not sending it to the page, then there would be no use. And without submit button, or if we don't have the submit button, we won't be able to send our data. Like over here, you can check we have this submit button. Okay. If I don't have this one, let's say I have deleted this one, and I just now whatever I type, that won't be sent to anywhere. There is no way that by which I can send my data until I am not going to submit this form. And where I have to submit it, I have to submit this form at this particular action page. So that data won't be sent until we are not using the submit button. So once you use this submit button, what you have to do is you have to just simply click on it, and that data would be sent to the defined action. That means the action, that is this URL. So this data, whatever we have provided the value of these two text boxes, that value will be sent, and now it is displaying us like that. Clear? So without submit button, we can't submit our form data, whatever we have written. And this is the most important. Without this button, there is no use of your form. Then the another one is, today we are going to learn about images. So I hope you have seen that there are multiple images on a web page, and just keeping only the text thing will make someone boring. He won't take much interest in your website, or he won't go to the all the pages of your website. So just to make it a good web page, or you can say an interactive one, we add images on our web page. So basically it also helps to understand the content of our web page better. So if you want to insert an image in our web page, so there is a tag that is given to us, that is img tag. So in an image tag, there is one attribute sr. So this attribute will contain the URL of your image. I told you earlier as well that if your image and web page both are at the same location, then you don't need to provide the full path. You can directly give the name of the image. But if they both are at different locations, then you have to provide the full path image. That means in source you will provide full path wherever the image is residing in your system. Clear? So let's see its example. So you can see that this is simple image, and their web page must be at the same location where this image is residing. And apart from that, they are using some other attribute as well, in which first is alt, that is alternate. That means suppose sometimes it happens due to the less download speed, or might be due to slow internet, or might be there would be some other technical issues. Because of that, your image doesn't come. I mean, that is not being loaded. So in that case, you want the user to know that the image that would be presented over here is representing what. So basically for that purpose, we provide this alt, that means alternate. So that text, whatever the text you will provide over here, If that image is not being loaded, so that text would be represented there, which will let user know that this particular image that has to be there is representing this thing. Clear? And apart from that, you can provide the width and height of the image. Again, the same, you can provide it in a pixel or in a percentage format. The percentage format only works when you are providing, when this image would be in some container. That means either it would be in a column of a table or in some other type. So here are some other attributes. So the source we have already seen that we provide the path of the image into that. Alt, we have seen that means alternate text for the image. If some reason the image can't be displayed. Height and width basically set the height of the image and width of the image. The last one is border. That means again, if you want to add some border on your image, so this attribute you can use. So over here you can see there is no attribute. Sorry, there is no border. Let's say we provide the value border 3. So you can check now we are getting a border which is a thicker one. Higher the value, thicker the border. Let's say if I provide 6, so you can check that it is more. Clear? So this is how you can create images in HTML on your web page. Now let's move on to our next one. So the next one is now suppose you want to send some image at the background of your web page. That means this is the, let's say this is the content that would be presented on your web page, and you want to set some images at the background of it. So how you can set this? You can provide a background tag, background attribute in the body tag. So as I told you earlier, that the whatever the content you have written in the body tag, that would be displayed on your HTML web page. So in the body tag there is one attribute that is background, which contains the URL of the image. So the same pattern, that is if your web page and the image are at different location, then you will provide full path or with the image name. That is for sure that without providing the image name, your image won't be presented over there. And if they both are at the same location, so in that case you have to just provide the name of the image. Let's see with the one more example. Let's see if we have. Okay. So what we can just simply set over here. Let's copy this image and set it in the background. Let's say body background. Okay, and I just remove this one, so that will help you to understand more. Let's remove this also, and you can check that earlier the image is coming over. So you can see earlier the image was coming only at this position because it was inside a HTML tag. But now it is getting repeated. The reason for getting repeated is because whatever the size of your web page, if that size of your web page is greater than the size of image, then your image would be repeated multiple times. Okay. If the image is higher than your size of web page, in that case it won't be repeated. There are other kind of properties for the images by which you can set these values, that if you want to repeat or not repeat. So that is a part of CSS. So for that you can just go through by yourself. And over here you can see that if you want to set it on background, so we have to provide attribute background in a body tag, and then we have to provide the URL of that particular image. Clear? So that's all for today's topic. So today we have seen how we can create HTML forms. So today what we have seen is, we have seen how we can create HTML forms. In those forms, how we can create the controls, that is text box, checkboxes, radio buttons, and submit button. So these are the common controls that we have seen how we can create them. And apart from these controls, we have seen one more special, that is password, that you must have seen on whenever you are submitting or when you are creating your account. So they ask you to enter your password. So they ask you twice a time. So first one is your password. Second one is for confirmation, and they both must match with each other. And for that purpose, they use this password tag. And by this, your information would be hidden, and it will display something like this. Yep. And then we have seen how we can create images in HTML, and how we can set these images as background of our web. So I hope these all are clear to you guys, and keep learning. And if you have any queries or any questions, please write us on our Learn Forward app. And if you want to, your feedbacks and are always welcome. So keep learning, guys. Have a good day. Be safe. Bye bye.